Hi everyone, today is another video on what sold. This will be for the first half of April 2025, and I make these videos occasionally to give you ideas of things that you can sell on eBay or any other online platform. I sell a variety of things. I don't have any really specialty niche. There's things I stay away from, but there's certainly no one specific thing that I'm kind of locked into, like outdoor wear or something like that. But I do have a lot of books and media that I do sell. I seem to run into quite a few books, and I'm going to show you what sold so far this month. And in this first item, some of these don't sell for very much, but once again, I didn't really pay anything for them either. So this book, I just wanted to get it out of the way. Really, it sold for $5. Loss of the Ship Essex. And next is some games for the TI 99 4A. I have which is an old computer system from the mid 1980s, and I sold a Star Trek game from there. Next up is some Legos. I have a Lego Dachshund, which has a wheelchair attached to him. So that sold for I have a lot of my things in my store on sale. This normally was $4, brought down to $3.60, but the buyer pays shipping on that. Thank goodness. Otherwise, I'd be at a loss because shipping would be like around $4 or so for it, a little more than four. Next is a can opener. Now this is one of those safety can openers that doesn't leave a sharp edge around the top of the can and the lid when you remove it. And so I saw this one at a thrift store and I picked it up for just $2-3, and it sold pretty quick for $17.10 plus shipping. And this is a storage box for 35 millimeter slides. It's a pretty old one. People haven't used 35 millimeter slides in a while, but you would just put them all in their little compartments and organize them so you can show them to your dinner guests after dinner. While you're eating dessert, you would pop these slides, and here's our trip to, Tennessee or Hawaii or wherever you went. So that's what this was used for. It's all metal except for the inserts, which is plastic. It does have a little bit of rust on it. Sold for $13.50. Next, I have just some. These sold very quickly. These are some vintage playing cards, and normally I kind of stay away from them because they don't sell for very much. But these had this really cool box that went with them. You can tell they're from the 1950s or 60s. I'm guessing maybe early 60s or something like that. And it comes with 2 decks of cards. It's complete, and the name and brand of it is Standcraft. And I had to count all the cards. I do have other decks of cards for sale. I have to count them all. And this is a book on the Greek Isles. It sold for $10.80. And the shipping was free on this, so I had to pay for the shipping. So a lot of these books, I'm only making like $5 on them, but I have so many of them, it kind of makes up in quantity. So this is something you may want to look out for. You find these sometimes at garage sales and estate sales are old machinist tools and draftsman tools. This is a fairly large caliper. This is for measuring basically a thickness of something. Maybe you're going to be using a lathe, and uh, you need to find out. Oh, I've got this. You want to reproduce a part, and so you use these calipers, and you would put it around the original, and then you take it over to your lathe, and you try to get it to the same, dimensions and all that. It opens up pretty big. It opens up to 15 inches. So that one sold for $21.60. Is free shipping on that one because it's pretty light. It just goes in a padded envelope. I have a collection of a small collection of these Diet Dr Pepper bottles. Those sold for $13.50. Free shipping on those. Uh, I always pick these things up. They sell pretty quick, probably within 30 days or so. It's an air popper, and I don't know if they still make these things or not, but every time I find one, and you have to look out for a couple things. One is that there's no cracks in the clear plastic part right here. And the other is that, well, usually it's clean on the inside. There's no burn marks or anything like that. But there's, on some of them, at the very top, there's like a little dish that holds the butter. And the dish sits over a hole in the very top. I can't point at it. At the very top of the popper, and it gets warm from the heat from the machine, and it'll melt the butter, and then you can pour the butter on your popcorn. Half the time, those things are missing. So if you buy one of these, make sure that that has it in there. Normally, I part out appliances like this, but the only parts to it was the lid and the motor, so I decided to sell it all as one. If I had if it had a little popcorn like a butter melting dish, I would have sold that separately. That sold for 19.80 plus shipping. The buyer paid shipping. And this is what I was talking about before. This is a blade. I purposely go in and I will buy appliances that and take the different parts, especially food processors. These blades go pretty quick. You know, I haven't had this one. This is what it goes to. I haven't had this in my inventory for very long at all. It's probably less than 30 days. That sold for 1080 plus 433, and I have the other parts for sale as well too. The bowl and the lid, I believe, are separate, so I have those as well. So the whole thing can sell for around $40 or so separately. I don't think I could sell it for $40 on its own. So, but part wise, yes. So I purposely go in there and I'll get the parts. And a lot of times, you know, what's funny about these is that the motor section is usually the part that never sells. And you end up, I don't know what I end up doing with it, maybe donating it back or something like that. But the base part generally does not sell. That's usually the longest lasting part of the whole thing. But the blades and the bowls and the other accessories that might be in there sell very well. Here's a Lego horse, another Lego piece. Like I said, my store is on sale right now for the month of April, so it was $4. It's down to $3.60 plus buyer paid shipping. I picked up these on Whatnot, actually. I bought a set. I've sold some of them. There's a large sleeve of them I bought of these paper vintage coasters. And so I sell them for $1.80 each, but usually people would, I had one person buy one, but normally they're buying like sets of 4 or something like that. So those sell for $1.80 each, and I believe I pay the ship. No, the shipping is paid by the purchaser too, by the buyer. Okay, now is a vintage book. It's called More Friends and Neighbors. This is a vintage reading primer. Oh, probably from the 1940s or something like that, 1940s or 50s. And yeah, here it says 46 to 47. And that sold for $15.30. I paid for the shipping on that one because I didn't, like I said, I didn't pay anything for the book. So sometimes I'll do that. And here's something else you might want not to overlook. And it's hard to tell when you're going to come across things like this, but these are parts for cars that are trim parts. And what's nice about these, you don't have to try and test them. You know, if you buy like a used, I don't know, pressure sensor or something like that, you know, a used one, how are you going to test the thing? But in this case, you can just go ahead and take the part out, clean it up a little bit. This is a trim piece for a Mercedes-Benz. It goes around the fog lights. And some of these I sell internationally too. Because they can't get the parts locally, and with tariffs kicking in here and all that, people are buying parts, which is kind of nice. You know, you can offer these parts for a decent price for them. But these sold for $25.20, and the shipping was free on them because they were small enough to fit into a pretty small box, so it wasn't bad at all to ship those. Probably costs like $5 to ship them. Next up is a Rawlings softball. Now this came in a lot of other things, and I normally wouldn't just go buy one softball, but it was still wrapped in the package. I sold it. Took about a year, and the weather's getting warmer, so people are starting to think more about things like baseball and outdoor activities. So this soft indoor-outdoor fast pitch training softball. It's nice that they're colored now. You can actually see them. Here's a this is another set of parts, and these are wheel center hubcaps. They're very small. They're only probably about 3 inches, 2 or 3 inches in diameter. But if you need them, you need them. So I priced them out. I did the research, found what they were going for, and I sold them. They sold for $18. I paid for the shipping because they're very light. They just went in a padded envelope, and off they went. Here's another book. This one sold for a bit more because it's a vintage book. It's I live in Michigan, and so I'm wondering if this may have sold to somebody in Michigan. But it's a book on Lake Superior, and it's a vintage book. It was signed by the author and has pictures and diagrams in it, and it's got the dust jacket, which does have some damage, but apparently it was not a deal breaker for this person. Here's another Diet Dr. Pepper bottle. With these, I found out that these people are very particular about the quality of them and um, the overall condition. So you do want to make sure that you highlight any and put in the description any condition issues that might be scratches and all that. Luckily, these are in really good condition. Uh, they're 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 pretty old. They don't have barcodes on them or anything like that. So this is probably like in the 1960s or something like that, 70s. So I think I'm down to the last one or two of those. I had quite a few of them. And there's another part for Ninja Blender. Now this one I've had for a long time. It's an older blender, and what always got me about parts, you go looking for a part for something you've had for some device you've had for quite a while, and they was, oh, we don't have that. They stopped making those years ago, and you're going, well, that's why I need the part for it, because it's a really old thing, and I want to replace it. So even though this is an older Ninja, I still have this. It doesn't have the blade with it and all that, but I imagine they must have the blade if they're going to buy this. So this sold for $18. I just picked this up. I don't even know if I made any money on it, or very little, because I paid for the shipping. I believe I paid like around $2. I think it was for $1.99 at the thrift store, so might have made a couple dollars on it or something like that. But it's a butter dish that you can keep out on the counter, and it was new. It had never been used or anything like that, so I priced it at $13.50. It was on sale. It was originally $15. I paid the shipping, so I don't think I made a whole lot on that one. But this one I did pretty good on. It's the DVD 4-pack of the Charlton Heston Bible. Sold for $17.10, and I paid for the shipping on that. The shipping on that was probably around $4.50. Yeah, probably about $4.50 a media mail. It went out like that, so that was a pretty good pickup there. It came in a box of a whole bunch of other things. Next is a combination square, something that carpenters might use for in cabinet making. This one is a fairly small one too, but it's because it's a vintage one. It commands a little bit better price, because you can buy these. You can buy them at Harbor Freight for probably. I'm gonna take two on that one. Here's a Johnson combination square. It's a vintage one, and it sold for $16.20. You can generally buy these even at like Harbor Freight for less than that, but because it's a vintage one, it's all steel construction and everything. It sells for a bit more than you might be able to get a new one for. So like this one here, for example, has a plastic. I'm not sure what you call this guide on this side. So that one sold for $16.20. I paid for the shipping because it went in a padded envelope, so it was very little to ship it. This one is a book of postcards. These are some vintage postcards from Italy. I've had this one for about a year, and it finally sold. It came in a storage locker. I bought an abandoned storage locker. It was full of books, and this was one of them in there. So I paid very little for this, so I probably made about $4 on it. But, it's because I put my store on sale, for April. And then here's another book I've had from the same collection. I've had it for about a year. It sold for $16.20. I paid for the shipping on that. It went media mail. And another book, The Heyday of the Sale, sold for $12.60. After my sale, and I charged shipping for this one because it's a rather large book, and so they paid $6.13 for shipping. Oh, next up is this is a vintage. Uh, I guess it's vintage. It's a Nelson sprinkler automatic shutoff valve, and this is if you. I don't know if you've ever seen sprinklers like this. These are pretty. This is going back even to my childhood days, is because our neighbor had a sprinkler. It looked like a little tractor, and as it would spin, you know, shooting out water, it would travel along the hose. So you put the hose along your line, along your lawn, I guess, and then it would follow along. It would just travel like a train track, and then when it get to the end, it would just sit there and just keep going. But this thing is like a little valve, so when it runs into it, it shuts off the water. So I sold one of those. It had the original box and everything. There's no barcode on it or anything, so I'm guessing that's probably before 1980 or so, maybe 1970s. But it's brand new. It came from a hardware store that had closed down. I bought it at an auction. We are closing out everything in there. I was really happy, but this is a it looks like a really well. It is a high end. It's a studio camera. It doesn't have a battery. You actually have to plug it into the wall, and it would come with you would have a tripod. But these does not have any digital outputs or anything like that. It's all analog. It doesn't. You can't put a tape in it, I believe. It says Panasonic HD, but that does not stand for high definition, I found out. But anyway, it's a standard definition camera. That sold for $71.10. And the shipping they paid on it was $37.96. So they're into it for over $100. I have a second one too, exactly the same as that one. I have a set of these mugs. These are Tabasco coffee mugs. Coffee mugs can be really tricky one to sell. It's got to be something kind of special. And so I looked these up, I guess, while I was at the thrift store, and I bought 6 of them. And this one sold for $8.96. I think I originally I had it from $9.95 each. So, but they're licensed. Does it have a year? That doesn't have a year on it, but this is probably from the 1990s or something like that. So it's not terribly old. And here is a Barbie blue swimsuit. I've sold these before, and they do sell pretty fast. Now it's only sold for. I had it for $10. They offered me 9, and I took it right away. And it's pretty easy. They go into tiny little envelopes. Uh, Barbie clothes can be. You've got to know what you're talking about with these things. I don't know a whole lot about them, but when I sold these, I probably have. I bought a whole collection of them. I probably have like 40 different little clothing pieces and accessories and that, and they've been selling pretty quickly. So they can, if they're vintage and they're the right ones. You just have to be very patient because some of them you might sit on them for a long time, but this sold right away, probably the next day after I listed it. This is a tintype portrait, and tintypes are, I say I have different ones here. This is the one that sold, these 2 women. Tintypes were early photography where they actually printed the image on a small piece of metal, and that would be your picture. And it probably would have been framed because, man, the edges on these things are sharp too. So they project the image on here, and and using chemicals and stuff, and exposes it onto the metal. And they're very cool old vintage ones. But once again, if you get these, there a lot of these were made, and so not everyone is looking for a tintype of someone that they don't know, not in their family or something like that. So it is a little bit risky, but I got these for really cheap. I think I bought the whole lot of these for $5. So, I've sold, I think maybe 1 or 2. I don't know if I just sold one of them or not. Let's see. I've sold. Looks like I sold 1. So it's really hard to say. With things like that, I'll be sitting on those for a while, I'm afraid. Here's another book, The Taste of Home Cookbook, sold for $9. These you should be on the lookout for. These are cross stitch kits. Now this is only went for $10.80, but I had another one that sold for $35. Another one sold for $40. So it just depends on which one it is. and it's got to be complete. See, this has all the yarn and everything. This one I believe did not. This one did not come with the needle though. That's the only thing that was missing from it. But you put that in the description, so it shouldn't be a problem. But I'm not sure why people are looking for these old cross stitch. It's very dated looking and all that, but maybe that's what they're looking for. Now this kind of surprised me. In the same lot of Barbie things I purchased were like these mostly mismatched shoes. They're all singletons except for there's one pair, and this one here is damaged. And our last item is actually a Dawn doll, which is kind of looks like a Barbie, but it's shorter than only 6 inches tall. This one sold for $14. They paid shipping of $3.91. So I hope this helps you out, everybody. Like I said, my goal is to give you ideas for things that you can sell online in your eBay shops. And of course, if you have any questions, just leave them down in the comments. I always read my questions and comments, and we'll respond to them right away. And also, please subscribe if you haven't already.